A brand new NCAA record has been set by Penn State wrestling 172 and a half team points, beating the record that was set by Iowa back in 1997. A 100-point margin of victory, 4 individual national champions with 6 finalists overall. Words cannot begin to describe what was just accomplished by the greatest sports program in collegiate history.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I mean, truly historic, poetic. Aaron Brooks capping off the wrestling season in collegiate at Kansas City in the T-Mobile Center. Carter Starocci probably going through something that wrestling spectators, wrestling fans don't even realize the adversity he had to go through. And then Levi Haines, Greg Kerkvliet handling business. A little close matches with Mitchell Messenbrink and Bo Bartlett, but still Penn State's going to finish with 8 All-Americans, set that points record, and that margin of victory is something as well. This is Locked On Nittany Lions. Thanks so much for making us your first listen and watch each and every single day. I'm your host, Zach Seyko, and this live episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them out all today at nissanusa.com. And if you're not already, become an everydayer. Subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest conversations around your favorite Penn State sports teams. Going to essentially react to what was accomplished in all 6 wrestlers' bouts, starting with the champions. We'll start with Aaron Brooks and Carter Starocci, because wow. And then going to Levi Haines and Greg Kerkvliet. And then we'll finish with Mitchell Messenbrink and Bo Bartlett. Yes, they got the silver medal, but we will talk about the winners first and just the overall accomplishments that Penn State was able to gather here, as this is the 11th title in the past 13 years. It was done in a day and a half, and then they set the points record by 2.5. And it's funny because I don't even think that record's going to be safe going into next season with what they could have come back. I will also be responding to comments in between ad breaks here during this live show. So I appreciate you joining this episode, joining the discussion as we recap it all. And because it was poetic, because it was historic, honestly, if you ask Aaron Brooks, he'd probably say it was biblical to an extent, that this season was capped off by him. Aaron Brooks is, he's very, very open about his faith and everything that he does. But truly, the history, I've talked about how wrestling is romantic, that Hollywood could not write a better script here. So what happens? Well, the NCAA and ESPN decide, hey, let's have Aaron Brooks and Trent Hidley wrestle 1 versus 2 at 197, because they started with heavyweight and Greg Kerkvliet started it off on the right foot. And then Aaron Brooks closed it out. Carter Starocci got the 4-time title himself, 4-time national champion. And then Aaron Brooks followed it up too. They're the first set of teammates to win 4 individual national titles together. So that happened. And they're also the first, both of them are first-time Penn State wrestlers accomplishing 4 national titles as well. But Aaron Brooks, in this bout alone, was able to accomplish that history, getting the 4th individual championship. He won the Hodge Trophy because of it, took out Trent Hidley for the 4th time in a row in the NCAA postseason, and then secured the new NCAA points record held by a team at 172.5 pounds. To think about all that, the ramifications of one match, and Aaron Brooks did so. I don't want to say with ease, but he makes it look so easy. Trent Hidley did not have, and Trent Hidley was wrestling out of his mind all season. We knew on this show, we knew that the points record was going to be set by Penn State. We talked about it on the show. No, they didn't get 10 out of 10 All-Americans, but that points record hasn't even been close to being threatened until 2024. and Penn State breaks it. And I don't even think it's safe going into next season with, like I said, what the future holds for the Nittany Lion wrestling lineup. Besides the point, let's talk about the here and now. But Aaron Brooks, again, makes it look so easy. Trent Hidley is the second best wrestler. Aaron Brooks wins decisively. Trent Hidley doesn't have a single shot attempt. He's completely a respectable shot attempt. Sure, he tried to make things happen, but Brooks's defense was so good. He rode out Hidley, who is an escape artist, the entire third period. Right? He got the escape at the end there. But a 6-1 victory for Brooks secured the riding time. And that's how it was all capped off there in Kansas City. That's what I mean. Storybook, right? Historic and then poetic to finish the season. If it was anybody else, it would have been a little different. Maybe Carter Starocci if he had finished the season like that. But there's a storybook element to that as well, which I'll get to in just a second. Aaron Brooks was the only wrestler that I would have wanted to see cap off this 2024 wrestling season, and he did. The fourth out of 6 title winners there for Penn State. And again, we'll get to the other ones as well over the course of this live show. And I am looking for your comments. I can't wait to see your comments in between the ad breaks when we'll talk about them, talk to you, the audience. Now there's Carter Starocci. Carter Starocci winning 2-0 against Rocco Welsh of Ohio State. That's a freshman. That's a Pennsylvania State high school champion. That is a good wrestler, and he has a bright future at the collegiate level. But man, Carter Starocci and the ESPN broadcast team, I don't think gave him enough credit. Okay, no, Carter Starocci didn't exactly look like himself because we will never truly know the severity of what that injury was. We can speculate, and I'll be transparent. I'll be honest, thinking that it was simply a hyperextended knee. But then Carter says he's at the hospital multiple nights, meeting with trainers, meeting with doctors late in the night, and you don't go to the hospital for a simple hyperextended knee. And Bo Nickel put out in a post without revealing anything, saying that if people knew exactly what Carter Starocci had to do to get to that point, to rehab enough to wrestle at the NCAA tournament, you'd never believe it. And I don't think any of us would. Carter Starocci is, I don't know that he's human. I don't, but he is one of the best athletes that will ever walk Penn State's campus. He's one of the best athletes purely across any of the sports, and he wins his 4th NCAA title. Could come back for a 5th. I'm not here to debate that. I've debated that in other episodes, but I want to talk about what had happened there. ESPN not giving him enough credit, opening up the match by saying that, oh, he hasn't looked like himself. Well, yeah, because again, he's battling an injury that we truly don't know the severity of, but then Carter takes off the leg brace and you just kind of see the tape job, the other brace that's underneath of it. I have some thoughts about that as well. But 2-0 against Welsh. And they said he doesn't look like himself and that these matches, they've been low scoring. Do we realize the path that Carter Starocci had as the 9 seed? ESPN. He took out not 1, but 2 former NCAA champs. Mekhi Lewis and Shane Griffith were the only other 2 best wrestlers at 174 that could have even been remotely close to Carter Starocci. Carter Starocci did what he had to do to accomplish his 4th title. Whether he's at 100%, 75, 50%, 10%, Carter Starocci has been the best wrestler since he stepped foot into Happy Valley and started wrestling with this Penn State team. For the past 4 years, the 174-pound weight class has been his, and it hasn't even been close. And the gap just keeps getting further and further apart. Really, you took out 2 former NCAA champs on a not so, because again, I can't assume how strong that leg was, but a not so great leg. I think it's safe to say that. And you win a 4th NCAA title. And he's just like, yeah, I expected it. I knew it all along. The 5th title up in the air. You could come back for that. Maybe he will, maybe he won't, but he has made it clear that his goals and aspirations are bigger than just another NCAA title. He knows he is too good for college wrestling. He has outgrown this sport. It's time to think professional, whatever, MMA, professional boxing, competitive fighting of some sort, and of course, Olympics. And he's got the Olympic trials in less than 3 weeks on that leg that has just been through hell and back between rehab, the competition, and Carter Starocci just wrestled. He was savvy. He was savvy because not only do you have to wrestle unlike yourself, but you also have to protect yourself too. So the fact that Carter was on the defensive most of the time and still felt like he was out in front, always with the lead, always in control, that's because Starocci is that kind of caliber wrestler. I do have some other interesting takes on this because that brace, yes, it's a big, thick brace, but then underneath of it, there was the other leg protection. It was wrapped in Carter. I think it was very symbolic that he took that off in the mat because he wanted people to know, I just beat you like this. This was my state. And you guys still, none of you could still challenge me. Carter knew all along that he was going to win. We knew on the show too. We knew that this wasn't going to be anything in doubt. And those were the two four-time champions there, in addition to what Levi Haines and Greg Kerkvliet did. We're going to take a timeout here on this live show. See a lot of comments pouring in. I'm going to try to get to them selectively. I can't get to all of them, but I appreciate all of you joining this live show. On the other side of this break, let's talk about what Levi Haines did, Greg Kerkvliet, Mitchell Messenbrink, and Bo Bartlett. I got a lot of thoughts about Messenbrink's match as well. Still on the way here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And today's episode is brought to you by Nissan. This week's March Madness highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one team that stands out, a team that's pushed it further than the rest. And just like any of the all-new 2024 Nissan SUVs, these guys were able to take it to the next level. How about the Arizona Wildcats? They can only be described as an Armada. The 2 seed is as hardcore as it gets out there. So no wonder they were able to take it to Long Beach State in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Washington State next, and they're one of the favorites to make a run in this tournament Dayton, as they are going to go for a chance at the Sweet 16. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop now at nissanusa.com. That is nissanusa.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick, which you can plug right into your existing TV, and it will provide access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have Fire TV. Fire TV recently created the Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us here at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV lets you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports. March Madness, NBA, Major League Baseball, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, and cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out the Fire TV channels, you should. You can trust me on that one. To learn more, visit amazon.com/lockedonfiretv. That is amazon.com/lockedonfiretv. And the Locked On Podcast Network is making history. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering each and every league. Find Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Check out the comments section here, and I know a lot of you have thoughts with everything that has gone on in the NCAA tournament. David, thanks for checking out the show. That was a great performance. And in addition to the champions, I don't want to forget about what Bernie Truax did in the blood round, the medal round, as well as Tyler Kasak. Kasak's wrestler of the tournament, and watch out for Josh Barr next year. Stud. Jeff adds, car ran from Messenbrink until wins, but they seem like they all do. You have a stall call if you don't enforce it. I'll get to that in just a moment in the final segment. Next year, this team is going to be dangerous. Eli, I could not agree more. And Jeff also adds, Penn State is loaded for years to come. Jason says, that was incredible. This tournament from the start to finish was a complete war. And Shane Griffith, wow. Yeah, Carter Starocci taking out two former NCAA champs, Mekhi Lewis and Shane Griffith. I mean, he's denied Mekhi Lewis long enough from returning to that spot. It's been his all along. And Jason said, Starocci, four-timer, Brooks, four-timer, Dayton Fix, four-time second place finalist. Dayton Fix, I gotta feel for someone like Dayton Fix to be there four times and to come up short each and every single time. That's something that, and he's been a world qualifier as well. That's something that he's gonna have to think about for a long time. See, Eli says, and I like the repeat comments. I see that a lot of people individual people have a lot of thoughts here to add. Davis will be bigger and better. K-Sack is going to be an absolute beast next year. Messenbrink will also be on an absolute tear next season. I think that, and that's the thing. Penn State is going to run into an issue where, depending on who returns, Bartlett could return for another year. Starocci could return for another year. Kerkvliet could return for another season. And then you have guys like Alex Facundo who are going to come back. They're going to return. They took that Olympic red shirt and he's going to come back, right? You have freshmen like the Marisula twins coming in, Luke Lilladal who's coming in, right? There's only 10 starting spots. So this lineup is going to get bigger, badder, and better than ever. John says Carr should have gotten at least one more stall call. That mess, I almost want to go back into the content with the Mitchell Messenbrink match, because that one I felt beside myself when Mitchell Messenbrink did not end up winning it. So let's pick up with Greg Kerkvliet and Levi Haines, and starting with Greg Kerkvliet, because this one, I felt very confident in him winning this one, more so than Levi Haines. And you see, as the deficit was bigger. So I want to go back to, I didn't necessarily make championship picks. Starocci, I gave almost an odds. I had Starocci as my favorite, and the most likely that I would bank on to win a national title, because it's Starocci. Just listen to him. Aaron Brooks, almost like a 1A, 1B. But if you have to put 1 and 2, Starocci, Aaron Brooks, Greg Kerkvliet, Levi Haines, and then I had Mitchell Messenbrink and Bo Bartlett as the 5th and 6th, being the least likely to win a national title. Reasons aside, that's how I had them in order. So Kerkvliet being the third one, because he has owned Lucas Davison, and I got to give Davison credit again. Taking down younger Bastida, because I fully expected a Kerkvliet versus Bastida championship. We didn't get that. We got Davison part 3, and Kerkvliet able to just he's beaten Davison so handedly from earlier. So nothing was going to be different in the NCAA championships. And Kerkvliet, it is great to see him finally reach the mountaintop here, because this was Gable Stevenson's heavyweight class for the longest time. No one could catch him. Mason Paris then comes in, and Greg Kerkvliet continues to just play second fiddle, third fiddle to either of them. And now and then the passing of the torch. Kerkvliet is now at the top, deservedly so. And if he does come back, it is still going to be his weight class. We don't know what he's going to do. He could come back. He could move on. That's up to him. But this is his heavyweight class after, again, being from behind when it came to Stevenson and then Paris. Now it's Kerkvliet's turn to own that heavyweight crown, and he certainly earned it at this point. But what a run by Kerkvliet when all was said and done here. The way he did it, yeah, he had some close matches. Don't get me wrong, not everything was a dominant performance, but the way that he finished up against Davison, because that's the final, and you win 13-4 by major decision. Davison tried to, and he was able to escape. I thought that was interesting that Greg Kerkvliet is one of the best wrestlers on top overall in this NCAA tournament at the respective weights. And Davison got out fairly quickly, but Kerkvliet did not look tired at the end. was in control the entire time. And then Davison, I don't want to call these lazy shots, but just basically had to shoot in a last second attempt to see if he could score any points and make this difficult for Kerkvliet. And of course, Kerkvliet was going to take advantage of that and add to his margin of victory. So the story behind Kerkvliet getting to this point after always being second or third or fourth place, and he's gradually moved up each time. Over his 4 years, he was a fourth place finisher, then a third place finisher, then second place, and now first place. So that's to see the overall progression of Kerkvliet. And I will add this too. I have not seen Kerkvliet so emotional before. So the national title, I'm glad to see that it brought out some inner joy from him, because other times he's pretty stoic, he's pretty straightforward, no nonsense, and that's fine. That's his personality. I'm not trying to criticize, but it was cool to see Kerkvliet show a little more emotion than normal and kind of break out of character, if you will, for just a moment, because that's again, that heat of the moment spawns those kinds of things, what they feel inside of themselves and their soul. And Kerkvliet, had to display it, right? You win a national title, you're going to feel some type of way. And then Levi Haines beating Ja'Cory Teamer. Levi Haines does not get enough credit, and I'm glad the ESPN broadcast team did do something right in the fact that they commented and said, "Hey, all the attention goes to Carter Starocci and Aaron Brooks, but don't forget about Levi Haines." Like Starocci owning the 174-pound bracket, Aaron Brooks, whether he's at 184 or 197, owning those weight classes. Levi Haines, until further notice, until he's done at Penn State, owns the 157-pound bracket, and that's for 2 more seasons. He's going to be a 3-time NCAA champ. He's going to run 157 until the foreseeable future here. I thought it was interesting that when you are in a national title situation and you're going up again, it's 1-0 going into the third period, and Teamer has the choice. Do you want to take bottom or do you want to take neutral? Teamer, because of out of respect to what Haines is as an overall complete wrestler, I would say that Haines is a better defensive wrestler than offensive, but just overall complete game. There really isn't a weakness at any point in time. He can pull any card out of the deck to use it to win, like Starocci, like Brooks, etc. But Haines, for Teamer to pass up on an escape opportunity and say, like, hey, I have a better chance of passing up on what should be considered not a guaranteed point, but a more than likely chance to even the match at 1 apiece. He said, no, I know that Haines is really good on top. I know that he could ride me out for another 2 minutes. So let me take my chances on my feet than trying to get the easier point, easier in quotes, because it is Levi Haines. That's a mutual respect for your opponent. That's an understanding that in order to do what it takes to win, that's what he had to do. And that's just a testament to how good Levi Haines is. So for the next 2 seasons, nobody's threatening Levi Haines at 157. Maybe he moves up or down, maybe not down, but maybe he moves up a weight class at some point in time, like Aaron Brooks did, going from 84 to 97. Who knows? But whatever weight class, my point is, whatever weight class Levi Haines is in, nobody's getting past him. He'll be a 3-time champ. It's a shame that he's not a 4-time champ, but he's going to be a 4-time NCAA finalist when all is said and done, and he will join another, elite class as things start to normalize again, returning from what had happened, COVID, the pandemic, everybody being able to come back for this, this 5th or 6th campaign, depending on where you were in wrestling or collegiate eligibility here. And as things start to normalize again, Haines is going to do the most that he can with respect to the 4 years that he has at Penn State. I hate that Mitchell Messenbrink did not win. Same thing with Bo Bartlett, but there's a lot of controversy, and I see that in the comments about the Mitchell Messenbrink finish with David Carr, as he did lose 9-8. Bo Bartlett deep in on a shot against Jesse Mendez, and Mendez was able to counter and pull it off in the final seconds. Once again, that might have been the closest in terms of 2 head-to-head wrestlers. Those 2 at 141, Bartlett and Mendez, might have been the closest together above all else. We're going to discuss just that on the other side of this break. Today's live episode is also brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes the best place to hire. Gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all of this while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or the resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even quicker. 2.5 million small businesses. That's right, 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free now at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And if you're not already, become an everydayer. Subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast for the latest conversations around your favorite Penn State sports teams. Talk more than football on this show, obviously, as we're discussing wrestling here, finishing up the NCAA championships out in Kansas City, but also talk men's basketball. We've discussed men's hockey on the show. We'll talk some high school recruiting as well. All your favorite Penn State sports teams are here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Let's return to the comments section. I hope I didn't miss anything, any new comments that are coming back here. So Jeff says, Cale Sanderson for president. Yes, Cale Sanderson leading now 11 NCAA titles in the past 13 seasons. The 100-point differential, I think, is the craziest record. Part of that has to do with competition, too. So, yes, it's Penn State's really out in front. Is that so? That can go one of two ways, I think. I think it has to do more so with, yes, Penn State is just that dominant, but the competition kind of also sorts itself out too. That second place was close. Cornell taking second. I mean, that's a testament to Vita Arujau because of his championship that pushed them past Michigan to take the second title. So the team race, the second place finish was more interesting because we all knew that Penn State was going to take first. David, thanks for the comment. Levi showed patience the moment Teamer gave an opening. Haines in for the takedown, and that was just it. You shut out the number 2 seed in the championship bout. You win 4-0, and you wait for Levi Haines can do what he needs to do. If he needs to be overly aggressive, if he needs to wait, see what the opponent wants to do, and identify those weaknesses, and that's what Haines did. I think Haines is almost like a chess master because that's what this is. I think maybe it was ESPN, maybe it was somebody else described this as legal fighting, right? It's legal organized fighting in this case, but it's also another way of chess. You're going to make moves across the board. You're going to try one thing, you're going to try another. Someone's going to take a pawn, someone's going to take a rook, someone's going to ultimately take the king. And when you try to take the king, you better not miss. And I think that's a very good simile description, characterization of what Penn State is doing here. And John adds, yes, the 100 points are humiliating. So that's how far behind the competition is to Penn State wrestling. Mitchell Messenbrink, Bo Bartlett. Well, so as dominant as the other 4 individual NCAA champions were, and overall, yes, Penn State is not perfect. They didn't go 6 for 6. They didn't break the individual champion record. They didn't even tie it. The record is 5. That 1997 Iowa team had 5, and Mitchell Messenbrink and Bo Bartlett were so close to either getting a 5th or a 6th national title. So the record would be 6th. 10 out of 10, you can't beat 10 out of 10 All-Americans. Penn State had 8, but they were 1 short of tying and so the 1997 Iowa team can still, claim that they had 5 individual champions and Penn State only had 4. But Penn State's got the team record. So overall, they were much better. And the head-to-head record as well. I think Penn State lost only 7 matches over the course of 3 days. That's impressive too. But I think the comments reflect it. Mitchell Messenbrink, outside of, winning's great and what Starocci did and Brooks and Kerkvliet and Haines, everybody wants to talk about Mitchell Messenbrink's match because there was a lot of controversy around it. Mitchell Messenbrink definitely has a good attitude, like a spirited attitude. It's not negative. I'm not saying that he was complaining or unserious or anything, but I like the way he toys with the opponent, the finger wagging at a veteran like David Carr, to say like, hey, don't try that, don't try that. And Mitchell Messenbrink, I'll start off with this, was the better wrestler in that match. I know that David Carr won 9-8, and you think, well, the better wrestler would know the score of the bout. But Mitchell Messenbrink, had he not assumed that was a tie score, that was 8-8 and they were going to sudden victory, and if they had gone to sudden victory, Mitchell Messenbrink would have won. Mitchell was the better wrestler from that. Carr was out of gas, pun intended. Yes, David Carr was gassed at the end, and Mitchell Messenbrink looked like he could have gone for another round, maybe even two. You had the stall warnings, and maybe they didn't call enough on Carr. That's fine. But Mitchell Messenbrink, he was the aggressor. He was always looking to attack, and Carr just kept backing up. That's a former NCAA champion, now a two-time NCAA champion. And Carr was on the defensive, working away from Mitchell Messenbrink. Like, whoa, Mitchell Messenbrink's still fairly new here at the collegiate level. First year at Penn State, first year in the NCAAs. And he's only a redshirt freshman, so he has 3 more chances at this. And again, if he stays at 165, maybe he moves up at the end of the day, whatever the weight class is. Now that Keegan O'Toole and David Carr are out of the way, specifically at 165, it's Mitchell Messenbrink and nobody else. Messenbrink was the better wrestler all along, and I like the way that he came back too. He came back, but I just don't understand what the disconnect there was with the scoreboard. The coaches, does Mitchell Messenbrink not know what? Because the board says 8-8. That riding time point isn't factored in until the end of the match, or at least it doesn't show up on the board. Because I'm wondering there, why does Messenbrink have his arm out, pushing on Carr, and he's not being overly aggressive like he is throughout this entire season? Because he didn't know that this wasn't going to sudden victory. Why is that? Did Messenbrink was he, I know he's familiar with the sport. I'm not questioning that he doesn't know the rules and regulations, but okay. Yes, the riding time was certainly in the advantage of Carr. I guess he's supposed to naturally assume that it's over 1 minute, because that's an element of it. And because he's not counting the seconds in his head, 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're over 60 now. I know he has that riding time point. Did the coaches not say enough? Did Mitchell Messenbrink not hear them? What is the disconnect? I've seen kind of back and forth on this. Yes, Mitchell Messenbrink should know what is going on in that situation. I've seen the other side of it too. The coaches need to be more in his ear. You have 4 coaches in that corner, and somebody's not telling or knowing in the championship that you need points. Yeah, you got to take a final shot in the 20 seconds, because just like everybody else, I flabbergasted that Messenbrink wasn't trying to land another shot in that situation. And he misses out on he's going to be a 4-time NCAA finalist, most likely. But being a 4-time NCAA champ, that's not going to happen now. And that is, you would have liked, I don't want to say you would have liked to, but you don't want to see him lose this way. Because one way or another, that's a really cruddy way to go out. Don't we all think? To lose an NCAA title because you weren't understanding what the score was. I got to feel for Mitchell Messenbrink, because that's almost by accident. That's not anybody's fault. Carr didn't get a last-second takedown. Messenbrink didn't give up a last-second takedown. It was simply because there was a miscommunication on the biggest stage of what the score actually was. So that goes hand in hand. Either Messenbrink didn't hear or wasn't focusing enough on what the coaches were saying, or the coaches weren't loud, weren't verbal enough. We'll never know because we weren't on the mat. But something happened. That's just, at this stage, at this level, it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable, because that's Penn State. We're talking about all the records they've set. There's multiple 4-time NCAA champions. And that's how you don't get to a 5th. by Messenbrink. How'd you lose? I didn't know the score. I don't know. I hate to see that way. I hate to see it lose that way. So something happened there. There was a disconnect with what happened in the Messenbrink match. But I think Carr should have got maybe another stall call, but you can't rely on the refs. It's kind of going back to the Braden Davis situation. That Braden Davis was looking for a stall call against Richard Figueroa, who ended up being an NCAA champion in his own right, and he was looking for a stall call. You can't rely on the refs to give you that point and look for that. So I don't think Mitchell Messenbrink was relying on the refs to get another stall call, but if they're not going to call it, you still have to wrestle past that. You have to wrestle through that, and it's just a shame it finished up that way at a 9-8 score. I don't know whose fault it is overall, but collectively, Messenbrink and the coaches are working together. So something happened one way or another where nobody knew what the actual, or Messenbrink did not know what the score was and did not try to take that final shot in the last 20. He had about 20 seconds, it looked like, to make one final play, one final move at Carr to win and be that 5th national title for Penn State this season. And then Bo Bartlett. Bo Bartlett and Jesse Mendez are really close. I think Jesse Mendez is slightly better, and he is, because he's beaten him twice, 2 times in a row now at Big Ten championships, and then at the NCAAs, of course, where it mattered most. But this was a very storybook-like thing again. Bo Bartlett beats him in sudden victory the first time. Jesse Mendez beats him in the final 10, 15 seconds the second time at Big Tens, and then they get to settle a 1-1 draw at the NCAA champions in front of a national crowd, in front of a national audience on TV. And it did not disappoint. That's a very defensive one. I think Jesse Mendez has is better offensively, but Bo Bartlett and Mendez neck and neck when it comes to defensive prowess there. And Bartlett felt like he was the more of the aggressor in this one, surprisingly enough, because I would align Bartlett being a more defensive wrestler. But it was a low-scoring match, as we kind of all expected there, and Bartlett deep in on a shot. And I'll tell you what the difference was. It's not that, Bo Bartlett isn't good at this or Jesse Mendez is better than this. It goes to natural gifts at that point. Jesse Mendez is taller than Bo Bartlett. I don't know by how much, but that's the difference maker. That Jesse Mendez is slightly longer, slightly taller than Bo Bartlett, and he's able to counter because Bo Bartlett was extremely deep on that shot. And I think against any other wrestler, that is a takedown. But when it's Jesse Mendez who can counter, has the strength, has all the other attributes to do just that, but then you add the fact of what his natural gifts and abilities are, and that's what it was. Jesse Mendez has the body type to be able to counter what Bo Bartlett did there in the final seconds. And if Bo Bartlett's arms were slightly longer, he would have been able to hold on to the leg, and then they go, no takedown, and they go to sudden victory 1-1 again, and that would have been something to behold. There's also the controversy around, was that a takedown, by Bo Bartlett, because he did get, in fact, behind Jesse Mendez. And if you count, I don't think I want to side with the Penn State wrestler and say that, yes, he had a takedown because he was behind Mendez, but Mendez was quick enough on his feet to not allow Bartlett to have enough control in that scramble. I don't think he didn't have control enough for the count of the wrestlers to call it a 3-point takedown. And that's the difference between anybody else in that bracket at 141 and then Jesse Mendez and Bo Bartlett, because he's able to get out of that scramble. He's able to avoid that 3-point takedown, I should say, and then counter it to have because the referees and the broadcast team talking about how this was going to be potentially, they're reviewing if that was a 3-point takedown and then a 2-point reversal. It wasn't going to be because Bartlett didn't have control for long enough. That was the call that was made. I'm going to err with that one as well, but that's how it happened. And Penn State has 4 NCAA champions, 6 finalists overall, 8 All-Americans. The 100-point team margin of victory, 172.5 is now the record. We said it on this show since back in January and starting to cover the Big Ten dual meets and everything else as the season really went underway for Penn State. We knew on the show, Jeff Byers, the voice of Penn State wrestling, agreed with me that Penn State was capable of some great things, some historic things And they did just that with the 2 four-time NCAA champions individually in Starocci and Brooks. The points record was not safe by Iowa. Mitchell Messenbrink had been underrated all season long. Same thing with, Levi Haines was really at the top of his game and should have been the bona fide contender at 157, and nobody else was going to threaten him. Same thing with Greg Kerkvliet. All of that was consistent over the past 3 months here, and we talked about it on this show. I appreciate everyone who has joined these conversations, has been a part of the show all season long. From the start of the first dual meet recaps to here after day 3, the NCAA finals recap here as Penn State sets history, crowns 4 individual champions. And the lineup, strangely enough, can be even better next season. 11 championships in the past 13 seasons. Dynasty, I feel like, doesn't even describe Penn State. I don't even know what anymore. Like I said, words cannot describe what Penn State wrestling is accomplishing here. But I can say this, and it's not controversial at all, that this is the greatest sports program in collegiate history. That's football, that's basketball, that's any sport you want to throw out there. Penn State wrestling is the best across any college athletic program. And it's going to stay like that. It's going to stay like that for the foreseeable future. As long as Cale Sanderson is in charge and continues to run this program the way he does, that's how it's going to be. If you're not already, become an everydayer. Subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks so much for joining the live show, joining the discussion, and for any of the other shows that you were in as well with the NCAA tournament recaps. We'll have more on Penn State wrestling. We're going to have more discussions. Hopefully get Jeff Byers back on the show to fully recap the season and preview what's ahead as the 2024-25 season will sneak up on us as it's not too far away. Well, thanks so much again for checking out this show, joining the live stream. I'm Zach Seyko, and for more Penn State content around your favorite teams, keep it right here on Locked On Nittany Lions.